Okay, hi Alvin.
Hi.
Now, last time we looked at ecosystems. Do you remember an ecosystem was an interaction of different things, some of which were living and some were non-living? Can you remember the words that described non-living things? What was the word?
Um, Abby, uh, Gruffy,
Abiotic. And what was living
Biotic.
things? Biotic, fantastic. And we said that the interaction of all of those things um, is an ecosystem. And
I
we
have some.
looked, go on.
I have something to say. Um, I remember when we looked when we had some animals lived in extreme conditions.
We looked at extremophiles as well, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Well remembered. Okay, well, today we're going to look at the way in which within an ecosystem, certain creatures will eat other creatures, and the way that um, that this arrangement happens within an ecosystem. And we can draw what's called food chains. Now, a food chain is something like this. First of all, there's the sun, of course, gives us our energy, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And then something that I can't draw, which is one of these. Now that, believe it or not, Alvin John, is supposed to be a cabbage. Not very well drawn at all. What would eat a
Well drawn.
cabbage?
You believe rabbit? Rabbit?
Yes, maybe a rabbit. So maybe a rabbit would eat a cabbage. I'm not going to even attempt to to draw a rabbit, but a rabbit would eat a cabbage. What might eat a rabbit then?
Fox?
Fox, okay. What might eat a fox?
Um,
That's a difficult one, isn't it?
yeah, bear.
Okay. A bear might eat a fox. Yeah, okay. I guess so. I'm going to draw a little arrow in between like this. And that arrow means eaten by. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So read what it says there.
Cabbage eaten by rabbit. Bear eaten by fox. Fox eaten by bear.
Wonderful. Now, let us suppose that we have some grass actually this time. And the grass here is what we call the
Grain.
producer. And the grass, and what does this arrow mean?
Eaten by.
Is eaten by, let's say, a rabbit again.
Uh, but rabbits don't eat grass.
Do they not? I thought they did.
They didn't eat grass. But sheep do.
Okay, I suppose we can have sheep, can't we?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So sheep would be a consumer. And because it's the first one, we say it's the primary consumer. In other words, it's the first consumer, the first thing that eats things. The producer is the thing that gets all of the energy from the sun. So give me another example of a producer.
Um, Wheat.
Wheat, or can you think of one beginning with the letter L, for example?
Um, Lettuce.
Yes, lettuce. So the lettuce would trap the energy from the sun. In fact, any green plant will act as a producer, won't it? Because it will trap that energy. And the first thing that eats it is called the primary. What's the rest?
Primary, primary consumer.
Excellent. Now, let's suppose this sheep is eaten by a human. All right. The human would be the secondary. consumer. All right, because it's the
Mhm.
second one. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Now, you've been learning about fractions, haven't you?
Mhm.
And you've been learning a little bit about percentages, I think, because you often mention percentages. Just try and remember, Alvin, about 10% of the energy gets passed on between each of these levels. So this you can think of as a level like that, right?
Mhm.
So if I had this here, what read what that says to you.
A eaten by B. B eaten by C. C eaten by D.
And that's what's called a food chain, because what I can do is just make it into one long line, all right? So this is a
Mhm.
food chain like that. But it's not always that easy. Look, you may have A eaten by B, eaten by C, eaten by D, but maybe B is also eaten by E, and maybe B is eaten by F, and maybe C is eaten by E as well. And maybe it's the case that A is eaten by G, and so on. This complicated setup is called a food web because it looks a little bit like a spider's web, doesn't it?
Mhm.
All right, can you see a food chain in this food web? See if you can
A
see one.
eaten by B. B eaten by C. C eaten by D.
Can you see another one? So you've got that, that's one. Can you see another?
Um. A eaten by B. B eaten by F.
Very good. So that would be another food chain, wouldn't it? Can you see another?
Mhm. C eaten by D.
Well, that's a very short one. Go on.
C eaten by E.
That's
E.
also a very short one. Okay, you could have A eaten by B eaten by E, couldn't you? Like
Mhm.
that.
Maybe
Anyway,
maybe A eaten by G.
hmm
G eaten by E.
right.
E eaten by R.
Lots of different ones. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine a situation where for some reason E isn't there anymore. Maybe they've died. Maybe there's been some sort of virus that has come in and just killed E. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Now, if E has died out, what will happen to G?
He will be hungry.
Well, no, because G is eaten by E, isn't it?
Mhm.
So what will
He will
happen
also
to
die
Y?
because G is eaten by H, which means H eats G.
Well, it does, but we're not worried about that. H eats G anyway. What we're worried about is this E business. If G, for example, I suppose G could be something like
Giraffe.
let's use your sheep idea from earlier, and suppose sheep are eaten by humans, because we do eat sheep, don't we? And
Okay,
sheep
so
are also eaten by wolves. If all the humans died out, would that be good news for the sheep?
well,
In this case here, imagine you're a sheep and you're eaten by humans, and then one day you wake up and all the humans are dead. Are you going to be happy?
no.
Let me ask you again, Alvin, and this time think. You are a sheep, bar bar. You get eaten by humans. Oh no, I'm being eaten by a human. That's not nice. You wake up one morning and all the humans are dead. Is that going to be good news?
Yes.
Of course it is. It's going to be good news. And so the sheep are going to be jumping around, and there's going to be lots of little baby sheep, and they're going to be very happy, right?
How about the wolf situation?
Well, the walls is irrelevant. We're not worried about the walls situation, but you get the idea with the sheep and the humans, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to make this a bit more complicated. Now, in this food web, what's happening is D has died, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
What effect does that have on I?
Um, that means I won't be able to eat D,
Exactly.
which means it will decrease the amount of I.
Excellent. What about if C dies out? What effect will that have on B?
Um, he will be happy because C eats B,
That's
which
good.
means he will increase.
So B will increase. Absolutely. So do you think you've got it?
Yeah.
I think you have as well. That's really, really good. So food webs are complicated, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Wonder if I've got an example of one that I can use for you here. I haven't got an easy one that I can use. Um, all right, now we've got various words here that are really difficult. And I'm going to ask you how many of these you know. Do you know what a herbivore is?
A herbivore is an animal that eats plants.
Very good. Do you know what a carnivore is?
It's something that eats meat.
Very good. Do you know what a producer is?
A producer is something, so like if you have grass and it hasn't grown and the sun shines on it, it will grow.
Yes, it takes the energy from the sun. Okay. What is a consumer then?
A consumer is the thing that eats the thing which is grown.
Okay, fantastic. And what's the difference between a primary consumer and a secondary consumer?
Primary, primary means first, secondary means second.
Pretty good, Alf. I think that we're there. So well done tonight. It's quite hard work having to do that at the end of a school day, but I think you've mastered it. Thank you for coming along. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Okay, bye.